What made me pro-trans? Thinking about this, I can think of several moments earlier in my life which made me go in this direction. Though I think if I gave my pivotal moments and not give any backstory, probably wouldn't really mean all that much. As in, there's a probability of it meaning anything impactful, just it wouldn't be substantial in any way unless you get my frame of mind, I guess. But really, I think what would make it most impactful is to just take you a bit on my political journey so you can understand just how far the rabbit hole went for me. I used to be a Republican, like hardcore, bona fide Republican. I was fully engrossed in it. But I wasn't like your traditional Trump Republican, mind you. Keep in mind, I'm 36 years old, and the times that I was a Republican was during the McCain, Obama, and Mitt Romney days. So when you all heard Republican, I want you to think, fiscal conservative, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of Republican. The economic government get out of the way of the perfect market Republican. The Trump thing never really happened to me. I remember I had spent a great deal of time in my early years, at 15 to my early 20s, hanging out with my friend. And while I was hanging out, my friend's mom, who absolutely loved Fox News. I knew nothing of politics at the time, and my friend's mom was sitting there always embroiled in politics. She would always talk to me about her Republican talking points. The classics, concerned about terrorism and the Muslims, wanting a win on the war on terror, lowering taxes, how the media is ultimately biased, and the only place Republicans can go is Fox News and AM radio stations opposing same-sex marriage.
This is Fox News with the latest liberal outrage. It seems liberals want to give NASA the right to abort space missions whenever they feel like it. Liberals, I hate them so much.
Second Amendment support, tough on crime. You get the deal. This person was a bona fide, old-school Republican through and through, and there I was at 15 years old, for years, just listening into her talking points and gathering my quote-unquote Republican knowledge. Now that I think about it, this sounds like a lot like indoctrination. I'm sure she meant well. She was just arguing her point and what she was passionate about, and I was willing to lend an ear and listen in as something that I didn't know much about. God, it was crazy. I became entranced with it. I loved Republicanism and its ideals. I liked the idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. I liked the idea that I could be rich one day and that it's up to me. It resonated with me as a young American, and no sissy liberal was going to tell me otherwise.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President Obama is the ex-president. And Mr. Trump, for the moment.
My family is a family of immigrants. Now, I can't say for certain that this is what lended to cracks in the ideology of Republicans, but it is more a death of a thousand cuts kind of a thing. I always found myself highly curious of politics and political thinkers. By the time I went to college, then fully Republican, abiding by Republican ideals and even voting McCain like a good Republican would, my family at the end of the day was and is a family of immigrants.
Club Kalash! Get your Club Kalash!
Hey, could you go across the street and get me a slice of pizza?
No pizza, only a Club Kalash.
Oh, shoo. All right. Give me one bowl.
No bowl, stick.
Oh, jeez, that's just awful. Now, why do you have to wash that awful taste out of my mouth?
My friend's mom was ultimately untrustworthy of immigrants. She had an underlying suspicion in her, not of hatred, but just that they were here, and that they were taking away jobs and opportunity from good old-fashioned white Americans. Thankfully, I looked white, so it didn't really raise fear in my friend's mom's eye when she saw me, a child born of immigrants from Chile, making me Hispanic and Chilean technically. Oh well, birthright citizenship, y'all.
We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous.
In fact, at least 30 countries guarantee citizenship to people born within their borders.
I'm an American. Kind of scares me that the Trump administration wants to end that. A shame. Anyway, one thing that just didn't jive with me and Republicans was the way that Republicans felt about foreign policy. They seemed to be perfectly okay with rushing off to war in some foreign nation, often at great detriment to many people. It also didn't jive with me to see how Republicans were ultimately untrustful of immigrants in general. This didn't make a lot of sense considering I was literally surrounded by immigrants at any time I hung out with my family. My family was doing well for themselves. We're talking doctors, programmers, professionals of all kinds of tradesmen my family was. We worked our tails off to get what we had. We didn't want a handout like Republicans said we were like. It just didn't make sense to me. As I went through college, I was listening to AM radio stations like a good Republican. There was this old show, it's not on anymore, but it was called The Neil Bort Show.
I don't suffer from stress, I cause stress.
Love him, hate him. If you live in Atlanta, you've heard of Bortz, whether you listen or not. Monica was often a Bortz target. She interviewed him for close-ups.
I've got the dream job of a lifetime.
But you pissed so many people off.
Intentionally.
The Neil Bort Show was this nationally syndicated talk show, which ended it back in 2013, talking about politics, current events, social issues, topics of interest, which Bortz discussed with callers, correspondents, and guests. Bortz touched on many controversial points. Oh crap, did I become something like a Neil Bortz for libs? Oh my goodness. Anyway, this show was wild because it had the same typical Republican talking points, but instead I had somehow stumbled myself upon a libertarian show, and the host, Neil Bortz, called himself a libertarian. In fact, when I first heard the word, I thought it was like, a Democrat or a liberal, which at this point was synonymous with everything horrible in the world. Geez, this had to be somewhere around 2011, which just tells you just how deep my Republican ideas were held. There I was, listening to this so-called libertarian, and I found myself agreeing with it more and more. I started to pick up and understand libertarian textbooks, watching pro-libertarian YouTube videos, libertarian talk, libertarian everything. I was super into it. And with enough reading, the concept of liberal stopped meaning this amorphous devil, but that liberal meant something deep and ingrained in our society. Heck, all quality of life societies across the West. Liberalism supported private property, market economics, individual rights, liberal democracy, secularism, the rule of law, economic political freedom, the freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religion. I, as a Republican, didn't know what liberal really meant up until that point. Certainly helped in that I was sitting there reading Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand and Jordan Peterson and loving the works of Murray Rothbard, who explained his ideal of a libertarian anarchist society with his Libertarian Manifesto. I was so ingrained in this stuff, I even joined my local libertarian chapter to volunteer my time and effort to the cause of liberalism, and not that sissy Democrat feely-wheely stuff, but the real liberalism, the real deal, the freedom kind. Wait, wasn't this video about trans people? I had a friend many years ago that I hung out with and played video games with every Friday. We would all get together, me and a bunch of friends, and have ourselves a good old-fashioned LAN party. Playing just about any game from console to PC, most of us just had laptops at the time, so it was perfect. Ugh. I keep segueing into something not related to trans people. I'm sorry, guys. If you are still listening to my mental screed, well, drop a like, drop a subscribe, whatever you can do. I'm a super small YouTuber, so any amount really means a lot to me. Anyway, my friend had one day come out to me as trans. I didn't get it, and at the time, this had to be sometime about 2014 to 2016 or so, which means that my little libertarian Republican brain was stuck laughing at the social justice warriors. I was watching crap like H3H3.
This is them. My world needs to be a safe place. I'm in your car for 10 fucking minutes. And if there's something that I think is offensive, I need you to tear it off. You look like a white male. Because I can't endure it for my 10-minute ride.
Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and the like. Thankfully, due to my understanding in libertarianism, it was all about freedom, baby. So when my friend came out as trans, I thought, hey, you do you. As time went on, they went on to the usual steps of transitioning, going as far to get hormone replacement therapy. Now, mind you, I should tell you that my friend was a tall guy, like really tall. They had to be around 6'4". and that's about 193 centimeters for you Euro bros. One day I asked them if they wanted to come over and hang out and play some video games. They said to me in response, well, okay, but I'm going to be coming over in a dress. Is that okay?
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
I can call the police if you'd like me to. You need to settle down.
You need to settle down and mind your business, okay? Ma'am, once again, ma'am.
And I'll be honest, in my weakness, it started to sink in. My friend was trans, and this wasn't going to get any easier. I looked at this person, and then when I realized that they would come over wearing a full dress, I'm thinking that like a sundress, like yellow color, like in my head. And my 6'4" friend, who have I known for years as a man, is now going to be in my house dressed like that. I couldn't handle it. After all that libertarian reading and understanding, I just couldn't stomach it when push came to shove. I would later grow to regret that decision. Heck, to this day, I think about that moment and regret that decision. I let the fact that my friend was trans be a wedge issue that I just didn't feel super comfortable about. It had to have been about how I grew up in the 90s, how I felt as a Republican, and the ideas of strict binaries, something I could just simply not shake no matter what I tried. So I stopped talking to them. If I met them in real life again, and thankfully much later on in life, I sought to correct this. Though the damage I caused, I'm afraid, is likely never to repair fully. I can only move on with my life. But beside that point, what made me pro-trans? Well, as I spent more and more time going to school, watching YouTube videos, reading books, something that started to etch its way into my understanding, I realized that I trusted the science.
The ability to judge what is true and what is not. What is reliable, what is not reliable. What should you believe, what should you not believe? And when you have people who don't know much about science, standing in denial of it, and rising to power, that is a recipe for the complete dismantling of our informed democracy.
Beginning on John Locke's philosophy of empiricism to the modern scientific endeavors that were easily observable in day-to-day life, from seeing my coffee pot not crack when the glass gets hot, by the way, how the heck does that happen? To my relationship with technology. One thing I knew was that science worked. Even much later during COVID, I trusted the science, and I was satisfied with what the science had accomplished. I learned to trust the science and learn more in scientific understanding. As time went on, I saw more and more people put their distrust in science. Distrust in vaccines, the shape of the earth, how old the earth was, the religious dogma pushing back. I knew what was in the right and what was in the wrong, and the science was in the right and the pundits were in the wrong. I was going to spend time and really understand what it meant in the scientific inquiry. I even picked up a book on epistemology, Belinda's Beginner Guides, to harden my understanding of what I consider to be true to actually be true. Thankfully, I felt my epistemological positions on what was true to hold muster, even in that book. To which could be verified to hold predictive quality was true, and that which could not was further from the truth. Mind you, the combination of reading books was also supplanted by watching YouTube videos for fun. And one YouTuber I liked a lot was Professor Dave Explains.
He knows a lot about the science stuff, Professor Dave Explains.
I love this guy. His work was far, far better than anything I could do even to this day. This is just my own mental mishmash of a timeline on what made me pro-trans, and to even get to it, I had to give you an entire speech on my political philosophy and epistemology. Jesus. Anyway, for those who are not aware, Professor Dave is a scientific communicator and YouTuber that makes videos and scientific lectures and lessons to commentary and debunk style work, pushing back against anti-scientific inquiry. The videos that set him into the stratosphere in terms of popularity was the Flat Earth debunking video. So as I was on my political libertarianism journey, in came his trans video. This portion is so impactful that it is the culmination of my understanding in epistemological rigor, the sciences, what is deemed to be scientifically valid and what does not, and all the anti-trans, anti-SJW stuff I had been consuming. On one side, I thought the idea of trans people to be ludicrous. Trans women can't be women. They're biologically men. Don't the stupid liberals understand that? I thought. But as time went on, and studies began piling up in multiple fields, and this trans video by Dave Farina.
Everybody seems to be furious about trans people. Half of us are furious that they exist, and the other half are furious about what the other half is saying. I would like to jump in and see if I can clear up some of the ways that people are talking past each other.
I realized that right-wingers actually had it all wrong regarding this topic. But when I was a libertarian, one thing rang true. I believed in the inalienable rights of life, liberty, property, the pursuit of happiness. Didn't every individual have a right to exist? Shouldn't they be able to use the same accommodations allotted to all individuals? Can a trans person really possess their life when chided and jeered at every turn, using the bathroom, going to work, being turned away by their friends like I did? Can a trans person really have a right to their property by firing them from their job because they are who they are? No, I thought. I had some deep introspection to tackle, so I sought to learn more. Was there something scientifically valid, or was it just social hoo-ha? Turns out the science in a myriad of different empirical ways proved the existence of trans people. I began reading study after study, and even picked up a book later called Brain Gender by Melissa Hines, which proved to be a culmination of the various studies I was reading. Here you can see we have a sex difference in the human brain and its relation to transsexuality. Transsexuals have the strong feeling, often from childhood onwards, of having been born the wrong sex. The possible psychogenic and biological etiology of transsexuality has been the subject of debate for many years. Here we show the volume of the central subdivision of the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis. A brain area that is essential for sexual behavior is larger in men than in women. A female-sized BSTC was found in male to female transsexuals. Size of the BSTC was not influenced by sex hormones in adulthood and was independent of sexual orientation. Our study is the first to show female brain structure in genetically male transsexuals and supports the hypothesis that gender identity develops as a result of an interaction between the developing brain and sex hormones. This was published back in 1995. Male to female transsexuals have female neuron numbers in a limbic nucleus. Transsexuals experience themselves as being of the opposite sex, despite having biological characteristics of one sex. A crucial question resulting from a previous brain study in male to female transsexuals was whether the reported difference according to the gender identity in the central part of the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis was based on the neuronal difference in the BSTC itself, or just a reflection of the difference in the vasoactive intestinal polypeptide innervation from the amygdala, which was used as a marker. Therefore, we determined in 42 subjects the number of somatostatin-expressing neurons in the BSTC in relation to sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or past or present hormonal status. Regardless of sexual orientation, men had almost twice as many somatostatin neurons as women. The number of neurons in the BSTC male to female transsexuals was similar to that of females. In contrast, the neuron number of a female to male transsexuals was found to be in the male range. Hormone treatment or sex hormone level variations in adulthood did not seem to have been influenced the BSTC neuron numbers. The present findings of somatostatin neuronal sex differences in the BSTC and its sex reversal in the transsexual brain clearly support the paradigm that transsexuals' sexual differentiation of the brain and genitals may go opposite directions and point to a neurological basis of the gender identity disorder. This was published May of 2000. The microstructure of white matter in male to female transsexuals before cross-sex hormonal treatment, a DTI study. Diffusion tensor imaging has been shown to be sensitive in detecting white matter differences between sexes. Before cross-sex hormone treatment, female to male transsexuals differ from females, but not from males in several brain fibers. The purpose of this paper is to investigate whether white matter patterns in male to female transsexuals before commencing cross-sex hormone treatment are also more similar to those of their biological sex, or whether they are more similar to those of their gender identity. Sexual differentiation of the human brain in relation to gender identity and sexual orientation. During the intrauterine period of the fetal brain develops in the male direction through a direct action of testosterone in the developing nerve cells, or in the female direction through the absence of this hormone surge. In this way, our gender identity, the conviction of belonging to the male or female gender, and sexual orientation are programmed into our brain structures when we are still in the womb. However, since sexual differentiation of the genitals takes place in the first 2 months of pregnancy, and sexual differentiation of the brain starts in the second half of pregnancy, these two processes can be influenced independently, which may result in transsexuality. This also means that in the event of ambiguous sex at birth, the degree of masculinization of the genitals may not reflect the degree of masculinization of the brain. There is no proof that social environment after birth has an effect on gender identity or sexual orientation. 2009. Mind you, this is just a small subset of studies shown, and even older and newer studies coming out only confirming trans people more and more. Not from a sociological lens, where at the time, I felt that it was a leftist indoctrination, thanks to Jordan Peterson for that.
I've tried to avoid the postmodernists to some degree because their incoherency is one of the least of their sins, but they don't care about that. No, you got to understand, man. It's modernists and Enlightenment people and even traditionalists who care about coherency. The postmodernists don't believe in coherency. They don't believe in, and I'm not making this up.
I no longer believe that sociology is just leftist indoctrination, by the way. But to break it down, the science was there. It was just up for people to discover it. Sadly, even with all this science, people's vitriol towards trans people still had not died down. If anything, it has only grown more and more active with the blatantly anti-trans legislation created entirely to discriminate groups of people from existence. The Trump administration had been no help. In fact, the Republican Party that I knew had eroded away and made way for a completely unrecognizable authoritarian system, which clearly wanted to control people more than let people live free, in my libertarian mind at the time. So that was it. I was pro-trans. I went from anti-trans, anti-SJW Republican to a staunch, hardcore, bona fide soy boy liberal. Pro-trans, pro-gay, pro-LGBTQIA+, you name it, I was pro-rights, including for all LGBT people. I gotta say, there are a lot of anti-liberty people type out there, and my discussion on how I moved from libertarian to Democrat is a whole other essay that I need to spend my time on, which just wasn't about trans people at the end of the day. But know this, anytime you see me debate these hardcore right-wingers, the anti-freedom types, the control types, you know where I come from. Now, when I hear the anti-trans stuff, it genuinely, to my core, sickens me to the point that I cannot even take them seriously. They have not gone through the journey, many of them too young, too lacking to look internally, assume rights for me but not for thee. They often live in insular societies that keep them away from talking to different people, and as a result, establish dogmatic views against them. You know it's only a matter of time, right? The science has moved forward with this. If you're anti-trans and you're listening to me, I'm telling you, you are wrong. You will be proven wrong. Time will go on, and eventually you will realize you fell for the grift. That's all right-wingers really have, a grift. They say things that are inherently intuitive, requiring no thought, and simply affirm people's identities by pretending that trans people don't exist. Trans people aren't women. They're freaks, that it will break down all of society or whatever nonsense. Know this. You will be proven wrong in the end. And the truth is what it holds, not your rhetoric or endless hordes of children that follow along. And I really do mean children. Most of these people are often Gen Z. God. Sorry about that, y'all. I hope y'all had enjoyed this video. I don't know what y'all think when I just introduced this stream of consciousness style content. Maybe you like it, maybe not. I don't know. Drop me a like if you like this. I mean, maybe it also leaves something to be desired. I don't know. Maybe right-wingers heard all that and was like, oh, God, First Amender, you're such a pretentious piece of garbage. Don't you know that men can't be women after all that? I'm waiting for that comment. Oh well, thank you all very much. Have a good day.